Okay, hello Year 9. So we're here to talk about the section that we looked at earlier about superstition and religion, and about whether or not Mrs. Johnston is too focused on superstition or whether she's really focused on religion, and how that might influence our understanding of her as a character and how it might influence her relationships. So let's just read the section again. It says, shoes are on the table and a spider's been killed. Someone broke the looking glass, a full moon shining, and the salt's been spilled. You're walking on the pavement cracks, don't know what's going to come to pass. You know the devil's got your number, you know he's going to find you, you know he's right behind you, he's staring through your windows, he's creeping down the hall. And then it goes on, ain't no point in clutching at your rosary, you're always going to know what was done. What's interesting here then is that continual direct address from the narrator. You know, you know, you know. And then the repetition of you, even though it's an abbreviation, so it's the Y with the apostrophe to show that it's been shortened. So it really is directly addressing the audience. We do know what's going to happen. And it's a reference again to that bit earlier when we looked at how we already know, just like Romeo and Juliet, that the two boys are going to die later in the play. So we've got that constant direct address that draws us in because we are thinking about what we do know what's going to happen, we do know what happens next. But it's this reference to the devil that I'm really interested in, and its juxtaposition with a belief in superstition. So the first section becomes a list and a series of really important images to do with superstition. Shoes upon the table, supposed to be bad luck. A spider's been killed, supposed to be bad luck. Someone broke the looking glass, 7 years, bad luck. A full moon shining, if you look at it, bad luck. The salt's been spilled, unless you throw some more salt back over your shoulder, bad luck. You're walking on pavement cracks, again, bad luck. So it's all very much superstition, folklore, things that people believe or used to believe about how to throw away your luck, essentially. It's interesting that it's a series of lists. It's also interesting that it moves from, say, the slightly less creepy and gothic in aspect, so the shoes upon the table. It's a bit messy, not really scary, to talking about a spider, a full moon, and then this idea of a broken looking glass, all of which are slightly sharper or more dangerous images. It's possible that was done in order deliberately, although he then finishes with, and the salt's been spilled. And again, it's not really a particularly threatening image. So you've got a mixture of superstition and threat built in there. If you think about what you can do with broken glass, for example, if you think about all the connotations of darkness implied by the full moon, those images are darker, more threatening. The shoes and the salts, maybe not so threatening. So if you're analysing it, yes, you can look at the series of images, and yes, I think it's important that some of those images are quite dark and quite menacing, but it's also worth thinking about the fact that they're embedded within images that aren't as threatening, that almost make her superstition seem pointless, silly, futile, all the things that we probably say about superstition. And then you have that wonderful repeat, that the refrain, the chorus that comes up, and we've discussed how it uses that you over and over and over again, but it itself is repeated. You know the devil's got your number, you know he's going to find you, you know he's right behind you, he's staring through your window, he's creeping down the hall. Particularly interesting in the refrain is the use of verb, the verb know, staring, creeping. Again, if you're going to talk about those dark images, those slightly gothic images, those slightly threatening images, staring and creeping fit in line with that beautifully. So there is a developed series of images. You might call it a motif if you were going to talk about it as part of sort of language analysis. So that sense of darkness, that sense of threat, stalking, staring, creeping. It's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. It's supposed to remind you that the devil is a really, really terrible, I was going to say person, but he's not a deity. And obviously he's going to do some serious damage. He's obviously there to draw you to evil. And this idea of the devil's got your number is more of a reference towards death. And this idea that you've been singled out, or in this instance that Miss Johnston has been singled out. And then you have this sense that she knows that he's looking, that she knows that he's chasing her down, because he says there's no point in clutching at your rosary. Rosary beads are something that Catholics would use to pray to, and you might pray for each bead and you count them down, and they're quite a physical symbol of somebody's faith, Catholic faith in particular. So he's saying there's no point in clutching at it, and again that verb's really important, clutching, grabbing on hold of. so it seems kind of desperate. And I think Miss Johnson is portrayed by the narrator as desperate all the way through this section. So she's clutching at it. She doesn't want to let go. And then it hits you in the end of that stanza, though it's not included on the notes that we made, that you sold your son. And that's the truth of the matter for the narrator. And that's definitely the way he wants to portray her, that she's given up something she should never have given up. And I think she knows that, and I think part of what the narrator is doing is playing upon her knowledge of the evil that she's done. So, we're going to talk about this in more detail, but what I need you to be able to do is to write about that analysis. So make sure you've had a read, make sure you've looked over your notes, and make sure you've watched this a couple of times through so you're ready for lesson. Thank you.